The cold mountain air hit Dr. Anna Miller's face as she stepped out of her car. She looked up at the tall gray building in front of her. Pine Ridge Mental Health Facility sat on a hill, surrounded by thick forests and snow-capped mountains. This would be her new workplace for the next year. Anna grabbed her briefcase and walked toward the main entrance. She was nervous but excited. After finishing her studies in psychology, she wanted to help people who others had given up on. This remote facility in Colorado seemed like the perfect place to make a real difference. The lobby was quiet except for the sound of her heels on the polished floor. A middle-aged woman with short gray hair approached her with a warm smile. "You must be Dr. Miller. I'm Helen, the head nurse. Welcome to Pine Ridge." Anna shook her hand. "Thank you. I'm ready to get started." Helen's smile faded slightly. "Well, let me show you around first. There are some things you need to know about this place." As they walked through the halls, Helen explained the daily routines and security measures. The facility housed 32 patients, most dealing with severe mental health issues. Some had been there for years. "We have one patient you need to be especially careful around," Helen said, stopping in front of a heavy metal door. "His name is Jake Rivers. We call him the Mountain Man." Anna peered through the small window in the door. Inside, she could see a man sitting in the corner of a bare room. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with long dark hair and a thick beard. His clothes were simple gray scrubs and his hands rested on his knees. "What's his story?" Anna asked. Helen sighed. 5 years ago, the police found him living wild in the mountains. He'd been out there for months, maybe longer. When they brought him in, he was like an animal. Couldn't speak properly, didn't trust anyone, and would attack if anyone got too close. What happened to him before that? From what we could piece together, he was a soldier. Came back from war with his mind all messed up. Something bad happened with his family, and he ran off into the wilderness to live alone. Anna watched Jake through the window. He wasn't moving much, just staring at the wall. But something about his posture told her he knew they were there. "Has anyone tried to help him?" she asked. Helen's expression grew darker. 3 doctors have tried working with him over the years. All of them were women. He hurt every single one. Hurt them how? The first one, Dr. Peterson, tried to get close to him during a session. He grabbed her arm so hard it left bruises for weeks. The second one, Dr. Williams, he threw a chair at her when she wouldn't leave his room. And the last one, Helen paused. Dr. Rodriguez lasted only 2 weeks. Jake cornered her in the therapy room and started shouting. She was so scared she quit the next day. Anna felt a chill run down her spine, but she kept looking at Jake. What does he do all day? Mostly just sits there. Sometimes he paces around the room like he's trapped. He doesn't talk to anyone anymore. We have to keep him on strong medication just to keep him calm. They continued the tour, but Anna's mind kept going back to Jake. Something about him seemed different from what Helen had described. Yes, he looked dangerous, but there was something else in his eyes when she had looked through that window. Not anger or violence, but sadness. Deep, overwhelming sadness. Later that day, Anna met with Dr. Robert Chen, the facility director. His office was filled with certificates and awards, and he had the tired look of someone who had been doing this job for too long. "I hope Helen warned you about our most challenging patient," he said, settling into his chair. "Jake Rivers, yes. She told me about his history with the previous doctors." Dr. Chen nodded grimly. "That man is beyond help, Dr. Miller. I've been doing this for 25 years, and I've never seen someone so far gone. The best we can do is keep him comfortable and make sure he doesn't hurt anyone. But surely there must be some way to reach him. What about his family? Does he have anyone?" "He had a wife and daughter, but that was before the incident. We tried contacting them years ago, but they moved away. Can't blame them, really. From what the police report said, Jake scared them pretty badly before he disappeared." Anna leaned forward. What exactly happened with his family? Dr. Chen pulled out a thick file. According to the reports, Jake had been home from military service for about 6 months. He was having nightmares, mood swings, all the typical signs of post-traumatic stress. One night, he had what his wife called an episode. He thought he was back in the war zone and didn't recognize where he was. His wife tried to calm him down and he pushed her away pretty hard. She hit the wall. Then his little girl came running in and Jake, still in his confused state, yelled at her to get down because he thought there were enemies around. So he never actually meant to hurt them? No, but the damage was done. His wife was terrified, his daughter was crying, and Jake realized what he had done. The next morning he was gone. left a note saying he was dangerous and they'd be safer without him. Anna felt her heart ache for this man, and he's been punishing himself ever since. Maybe so, but that doesn't change the fact that he's dangerous. 3 trained professionals couldn't handle him. I'm not going to assign him to you, Dr. Miller. You're new here, and frankly, you're exactly the type he seems to have problems with. What do you mean? Young, female, trying to help. It's like something about that combination sets him off. Maybe it reminds him of his wife or daughter. Whatever it is, I won't risk your safety. That evening, Anna couldn't stop thinking about Jake. She sat in her small apartment, looking out at the mountains where he had lived alone for months. What must that have been like? A trained soldier used to structure and purpose, suddenly lost in his own mind and afraid of hurting the people he loved most. She thought about the way he had been sitting in that room, so still and quiet. The other staff saw a dangerous man who needed to be contained, but Anna saw something different. She saw someone who was lost and had given up hope of ever finding his way back. The next morning, Anna arrived at work early. She walked through the quiet halls until she reached Jake's door. Through the small window, she could see him in the same position as before, sitting in the corner. You know, don't you? She whispered to herself. You know you're not really a monster. You're just scared, Dr. Miller. Helen's voice made her jump. What are you doing here so early? Oh, I just wanted to review some patient files before the day started. Helen looked concerned. You weren't thinking about Jake Rivers, were you? Because Dr. Chen was very clear that he's off limits for you. I know what Dr. Chen said. I'm just trying to understand all our patients better. But even as she said it, Anna knew she was lying. She was thinking about Jake Rivers, and she was already forming a plan. Over the next few days, Anna threw herself into her work with her assigned patients. She helped a young man with anxiety learn coping strategies. She worked with an older woman who had depression after losing her husband. She guided a teenager through anger management techniques. But during her lunch breaks, she found herself walking past Jake's room. She would look through the window and see him there, always in the same corner, like he was trying to make himself as small as possible. On Thursday, she noticed something different. Jake's lunch tray was still full, sitting untouched by the door. She asked Helen about it. Oh, he does that sometimes. Goes days without eating much. The medication affects his appetite, but he needs nutrition to get better. Helen shrugged. He's not getting better, Dr. Miller. He's just existing. That afternoon, Anna did some research on Jake's background. She read his military records, which she found impressive. He had been a decorated soldier, known for protecting his fellow troops and showing courage under fire. His commanding officers had described him as loyal, protective, and someone who would do anything for his team. She also read about survival skills and what someone might eat while living in the wilderness. Jake had survived out there for months, which meant he knew how to find food that his body could actually use. The institutional meals at Pine Ridge were nutritious but bland. For someone who had lived off wild berries, nuts, and fresh stream water, the processed food might seem impossible to eat. On Friday, Anna made a decision that she knew would get her in trouble if anyone found out. She brought an extra lunch from home. Instead of her usual sandwich and chips, she packed fresh apple slices, mixed nuts, and some berries she had bought at the local market. She walked to Jake's door during her lunch break and sat down on the floor outside. Just like she did with her other patients sometimes when they needed a calm presence. Through the door, she began to speak quietly. Hi, Jake, I'm Dr. Anna Miller. I'm new here. She paused, knowing he probably wouldn't respond. I brought some food that I thought you might like better than the cafeteria meals. I know you used to live in the mountains, so you probably know about real food. Not the processed stuff they serve here. She slid the small container of nuts and berries through the meal slot at the bottom of the door. I'm not asking you to trust me or talk to me. I just thought you might be hungry and this might taste more like what you're used to. Anna sat there for a few more minutes, eating her own lunch and talking softly about the weather and the changing colors of the autumn leaves outside. She didn't look through the window, wanting to give Jake privacy too. 3 weeks had passed since Anna started her daily visits to Jake's door. She had developed a system that seemed to work. Every day at noon, she would sit outside his room with her lunch and talk to him while sharing some of her food. Jake never responded with words, but Anna could tell he was listening. She had started noticing small changes in his behavior. His lunch trays were almost always empty now. Sometimes she could hear him moving closer to the door when she arrived. And once she was sure she had seen a shadow move across the small window when she walked past. The changes were so subtle that the other staff members hadn't noticed anything different about Jake. To them, he was still the dangerous silent man they had been managing for 5 years. But Anna could see the progress, even if it was tiny. On a Thursday morning, Anna was reviewing patient charts when Helen approached her desk. "Dr. Miller, I need to talk to you about something," Helen said. Looking worried, Anna's heart started beating faster. Had someone seen her talking to Jake? "What is it?" "It's about Jake Rivers. The kitchen staff mentioned that he's been eating all his meals lately. That's unusual for him. He usually barely touches his food." Anna tried to keep her expression neutral. "Maybe the medication changes are helping his appetite?" "Maybe," Helen said, but she didn't sound convinced. "I just wanted you to know in case you noticed anything else different about him during your rounds." "I'll keep an eye out," Anna said, hoping her voice sounded normal. After Helen left, Anna realized she needed to be more careful. If people started noticing changes in Jake's behavior, they might figure out what she was doing. That afternoon, during her usual visit to Jake's door, Anna decided to try something new. Instead of just talking about nature and peaceful things, she would share something more personal. She sat down with her back against the wall and unwrapped her sandwich. As always, she had brought extra fruit and nuts for Jake. "You know, Jake," she said quietly, sliding the food through the slot, "I understand what it's like to feel like you don't belong anywhere." She paused, listening for any sound from inside the room. "When I was a kid, my dad was in the military too. He came back from overseas when I was 12, and he was different. He would have nightmares and get angry about small things. My mom didn't know how to help him." Anna took a bite of her sandwich, remembering those difficult years. One night, Dad had a really bad nightmare. He was yelling and thrashing around, and when Mom tried to wake him up, he grabbed her wrist really hard. He didn't mean to hurt her, but he left bruises. The next morning, when he saw what he had done, he cried for hours. She heard a very soft sound from inside the room, like someone shifting position. Dad was so ashamed that he started sleeping in the basement. He said he was dangerous and didn't want to hurt us anymore. For months, he barely talked to us. He would eat dinner by himself and spend most of his time alone in the garage, working on old cars. Anna finished her sandwich and opened the container of apple slices she had brought for herself. "But you know what changed everything? My little brother got sick with the flu and Mom was at work. Dad had to take care of him. My brother was only 6 and he was scared and crying. Dad sat with him all day, giving him medicine and reading him stories. That's when Dad realized he wasn't a monster. He was still the same person who wanted to protect his family." She could definitely hear movement inside the room now, footsteps pacing slowly. It took time, but Dad got help. He learned that having scary thoughts didn't make him a bad person. He learned that the war had changed his brain, but it didn't change his heart. He was still the man who loved us and wanted to keep us safe. Anna gathered up her trash but remained, sitting on the floor. "I think sometimes the people who care the most are the ones who worry the most about causing harm. The truly dangerous people don't feel bad about hurting others. But the good people, like my dad, like you, they punish themselves for things that weren't really their fault." She stood up slowly, brushing off her clothes. "I'll see you tomorrow." "Jake, same time, same place." As she walked away, Anna was sure she heard something that made her heart skip. It was very quiet, but it sounded like Jake had whispered, "Thank you." The next day was Friday, and Anna was excited to continue building this connection with Jake. She had prepared another personal story to share, hoping to encourage him to trust her more. But when she arrived at Jake's door for their usual lunch meeting, something was different. Helen was standing there with 2 security guards, and Dr. Chen. Anna's stomach dropped. They had found out Dr. Miller, Dr. Chen said, his voice stern. "We need to talk." Anna tried to act confused. "Is something wrong?" "The security cameras picked up some interesting footage," Dr. Chen said, holding up a tablet. "It shows you sitting outside Jake Rivers' door every day for the past 3 weeks. It also shows you giving him food through the meal slot." Anna's heart was pounding, but she tried to stay calm. "You were directly disobeying my orders," Dr. Chen interrupted. "I specifically told you that Jake Rivers was off limits. You could have been seriously hurt." Helen stepped forward, looking disappointed. "Anna, we trusted you to follow protocol. Unauthorized contact with dangerous patients puts everyone at risk." He's not dangerous, Anna said, finally finding her voice.
He's been responding to kindness.
He's eating regularly now, and I think he's starting to trust again. Dr. Chen shook his head. You've been here less than a month. You don't understand what this man is capable of. Then let me show you, Anna said desperately. Give me a chance to have a proper session with him. Let me prove that he can be reached. Absolutely not, Dr. Chen said. Your little experiment ends now. You're banned from this section of the facility, and Jake Rivers will be transferred to a more secure unit. You can't do that, Anna said, her voice getting louder. You'll undo weeks of progress. As they argued, none of them noticed the small window in Jake's door. But if they had looked, they would have seen a pair of dark eyes watching everything. And they would have seen the panic in those eyes as Jake realized his only source of kindness was being taken away. That weekend, Anna couldn't stop thinking about Jake. She had been so close to reaching him, and now he was probably more isolated than ever. She imagined him sitting in his new room, wondering why she had abandoned him like everyone else. On Monday morning, Anna arrived at work determined to find a way to help Jake, even if she couldn't see him directly. She asked around carefully and learned that he had been moved to the maximum security wing on the 3rd floor. During her lunch break, Anna walked to the 3rd floor. She couldn't get close to Jake's new room because it required special clearance, but she could see the hallway that led to the high security section. As she stood there feeling helpless, she heard Helen's voice behind her. You really care about him, don't you? Anna turned around. Helen was standing there with a sad expression. I know everyone thinks I'm crazy, Anna said, but Helen, you should have seen the progress he was making. He was starting to eat, starting to listen. I think he even said thank you to me yesterday. Helen sighed. I've been a nurse for 30 years, Anna. I've seen a lot of patients come and go. Most of the time, when someone has been as far gone as Jake, they don't come back. But some do, right? Some people do recover? Helen was quiet for a moment. Very few, and usually only when they have someone who refuses to give up on them. Anna felt a spark of hope. Does that mean you'll help me? I can't go against Dr. Chen's orders, Helen said carefully. But I can tell you that Jake's new room is monitored by cameras just like his old one. And sometimes when I'm doing my rounds in that section, I take longer breaks than usual. Anna understood. Helen was giving her a chance. The security shift changes at 2 p.m., Helen continued. And there's usually a 15-minute window when the hallway isn't being actively monitored. Thank you, Anna whispered. Don't thank me yet. If you get caught, I can't protect you. And Anna, if Jake really is dangerous, you could get seriously hurt. That afternoon, Anna waited until 2:10 p.m. and then quietly made her way to the 3rd floor. The maximum security wing was much more sterile than the rest of the facility. Everything was white and cold with extra locks on every door. She found Jake's new room at the end of the hallway. It was smaller than his previous room with no window to the outside. Through the observation window, she could see Jake sitting on the floor in the corner. But his posture was different. He looked more hunched over, more defeated. Anna sat down outside his door and spoke softly. Hi, Jake. I'm sorry they moved you. I'm sorry I got you in trouble. She waited, but there was no response. She couldn't even tell if he knew she was there. I brought you some of those nuts you like, she said, sliding them through the meal slot. I know this new room isn't as nice as your old one, but I want you to know I didn't abandon you. I'm still here. Anna stayed for 10 minutes talking about anything she could think of, but Jake didn't move. When she finally left, the nuts were still sitting untouched by the door. For the rest of the week, Anna tried to visit Jake during her brief windows of opportunity. But each time he seemed more withdrawn. He wasn't eating the food she brought. He wasn't responding to her voice. It was like he had shut down completely. After that breakthrough conversation with Jake, everything changed. Anna felt like she had been given a precious gift, his trust and his willingness to share his pain. But she also knew that this was just the beginning of a long journey toward healing. The next week, Anna continued her secret visits to Jake's room during the security shift changes. Each day, Jake seemed a little more willing to talk. He told her about his time in the mountains, how he had learned to survive by eating wild berries and catching fish with his bare hands. The first few weeks were the hardest, Jake said during one of their conversations. I kept thinking I should go back home. But every time I imagined walking through that door, I remembered the fear in Amy's eyes, and I couldn't do it. So you stayed in the wilderness for months? Almost a year. Found a cave near a stream, learned which plants were safe to eat, There were nights when I was so cold and hungry that I almost gave up. But then I would think about Amy and Lucy, and I knew they were better off without me. Anna could hear the deep sadness in his voice. Jake, did it ever occur to you that they might have been worried about you? That they might have wanted you to come home and get help? Jake was quiet for a long time. I couldn't take that risk. What if I had another episode? What if I hurt them worse next time? Through these conversations, Anna learned more about Jake's military service. He had been deployed 3 times, and each deployment had been harder than the last. He told her about friends he had lost, about children he couldn't save, about the constant fear and stress of never knowing when the next attack would come. The worst part wasn't the fighting, Jake said one day. It was coming home and trying to pretend everything was normal. Amy would make dinner and talk about her day at work, and Lucy would show me her drawings, and I would sit there thinking about all the terrible things I had seen. I felt like I was living in 2 different worlds. Did you ever get counseling for what you experienced? The military offered it, but I thought I could handle it on my own. Thought asking for help would make me weak. Jake laughed bitterly. Turns out not asking for help made everything worse. Anna was learning so much about Jake's story, but she was also running out of time. Dr. Chen had been asking questions about why she was taking such long lunch breaks, and Helen had warned her that the security team was getting suspicious about the unusual activity in the high-security wing. One Thursday afternoon, Anna made a decision that would change everything. Instead of just talking to Jake through the door, she was going to ask Dr. Chen for permission to have official therapy sessions with him. She found Dr. Chen in his office, reviewing patient files. Dr. Chen, I need to talk to you about Jake Rivers. Dr. Chen looked up with an annoyed expression. Dr. Miller, we've been through this. Jake Rivers is off limits. End of discussion. But he's been making progress. Real progress. He's eating regularly, and I think with proper therapy he could. How would you know if he's making progress, Dr. Chen interrupted, his eyes narrowing. You haven't had any authorized contact with him since we moved him to the secure wing. Anna realized she had made a mistake. She had just admitted to having knowledge about Jake's current condition. I've been observing him during my general rounds, she said quickly. Your general rounds don't include the maximum security wing. Dr. Miller, have you been visiting Jake Rivers against direct orders? Anna felt trapped. She could lie and probably get away with it, or she could tell the truth and face the consequences. Yes, she said finally. I've been talking to him during lunch breaks. Dr. Chen's face turned red with anger. You deliberately disobeyed my direct orders. You put yourself and this entire facility at risk. Dr. Chen, please listen to me. Jake has been talking about his past, about his family, about his trauma. He's not the dangerous man you think he is. He's someone who's been suffering alone for years, and he's finally ready to accept help. Get out of my office, Dr. Chen said coldly. Please, just give me a chance to... Security, Dr. Chen called out. 2 security guards appeared in the doorway. Escort Dr. Miller to her office and make sure she packs her things. Her employment here is terminated immediately. Anna felt like the world was falling apart around her. You can't do this. Jake needs help. What Jake Rivers needs is to be kept away from people who think they can fix the unfixable. Guards, please remove her from the premises. As the security guards led Anna down the hallway, she could think of only one thing. Jake would think she had abandoned him just like everyone else in his life. The next few days were the hardest Anna had ever experienced. She had lost her job, but more importantly, she had lost the chance to help someone who desperately needed it. She kept thinking about Jake, alone in that sterile room, wondering why she had stopped coming to visit him. On Saturday morning, Anna was sitting in her apartment, drinking coffee and trying to figure out what to do next when her phone rang. The caller ID showed Pine Ridge Mental Health Facility. Hello? Dr. Miller, this is Helen. I'm calling from home, so this conversation never happened, understand? What's going on, Helen? It's Jake. Since they fired you 2 days ago, he's been different. Bad different. Anna felt her heart start racing. What do you mean? He's not eating again. Won't talk to anyone. Yesterday, When one of the orderlies tried to bring him medication, Jake threw his food tray at the wall and started screaming. It was the first sound anyone had heard from him in years, and it was horrible. Oh God, what did they do? They sedated him heavily. But Dr. Chen is talking about transferring him to the state psychiatric hospital, the one with the really bad reputation. Anna felt sick. The state hospital was where they sent patients who were considered hopeless. It was more like a prison than a treatment facility. Helen, there has to be something we can do. I don't know what. Dr. Chen is furious about the whole situation. He says Jake's behavior proves that he's dangerous and needs maximum security. But Jake's only acting out because he thinks I abandoned him. If I could just talk to him, explain what happened. Anna, you can't come back here. They have your picture posted at all the security checkpoints. If you show up, they'll call the police. Anna felt hopeless. Just when she had made a breakthrough with Jake, everything was falling apart. Helen, can you give him a message for me? I don't know if he'll listen, but I can try. Tell him that I didn't choose to leave. Tell him I was forced to go, but I'm still trying to find a way to help him. And tell him that I believe he's going to be okay. After Helen hung up, Anna sat in her apartment, trying to think of a solution. There had to be some way to help Jake. She couldn't just let him be shipped off to the state hospital where he would probably spend the rest of his life in isolation. That's when she remembered something Jake had told her during one of their conversations. He had mentioned that his wife Amy worked as a teacher at an elementary school. If Anna could find Amy, maybe she could convince her to visit Jake and show him that his family didn't hate him. Anna spent the rest of the weekend searching online for information about Jake's family. It wasn't easy because she didn't know Amy's maiden name or exactly where they lived. But finally, on Sunday evening, she found a school district website with a staff directory that included an Amy Rivers. Anna called the school first thing Monday morning. Hello, this is Anna Miller. I'm a psychologist, and I need to speak with Amy Rivers about her husband Jake. There was a long pause. Ma'am, I'm going to need to transfer you to our principal. We don't give out information about our staff members. After explaining the situation to 3 different people, Anna was finally transferred to Amy Rivers herself. This is Amy. I understand you're calling about Jake? Anna's heart was pounding. Yes, Mrs. Rivers. My name is Dr. Anna Miller. I've been working with your husband at Pine Ridge Mental Health Facility. Is Jake okay? Amy's voice was shaky. He's alive, but he's not okay. Mrs. Rivers, I need to ask you something important. Do you hate your husband for what happened 5 years ago? Amy was quiet for so long that Anna thought she had hung up. Finally, she said, Hate him? Dr. Miller, I've been looking for Jake for 5 years. I hired private investigators. I put up missing person flyers. I never stopped hoping he would come home. Anna felt tears welling up in her eyes. He thinks you're afraid of him. He thinks you and your daughter are better off without him. That's not true, Amy said, her voice breaking. Yes, I was scared that night, but I was more scared for Jake than of Jake. I could see how much pain he was in. The next morning, when I found his note saying he was dangerous and we'd be safer without him, I knew he was wrong. I knew my husband wasn't a monster. Mrs. Rivers, Jake needs to hear that from you. He's been punishing himself for 5 years, and now they're talking about transferring him to a place where he'll never get the help he needs. What can I do? They told me years ago that he was too unstable for visitors. I think if you contacted the facility and insisted on seeing him, they would have to allow it. You're his wife. You have rights. Amy was crying now. Dr. Miller, is there really a chance he could get better? Could he come home someday? I believe so. Jake has been making real progress. He's been talking about his feelings about what happened to him in the war. 2 months had passed since Amy Rivers had taken her husband to the Specialized Veterans Treatment Center in Denver. Anna often wondered how Jake was doing, but she hadn't heard any updates since Helen's last phone call. Anna had found a new job at a community mental health clinic in town, working with patients who had various trauma-related disorders. The work was fulfilling, but she couldn't stop thinking about Jake and whether he was making progress in his recovery. One Thursday evening, Anna was leaving her office when she noticed a familiar car in the parking lot. Through the windshield, she could see a woman with shoulder-length brown hair, and in the passenger seat a teenage girl with pigtails. Anna's heart started racing. Could it really be them? The woman got out of the car and walked toward Anna. As she got closer, Anna could see that she looked tired but hopeful. Dr. Miller? I'm Amy Rivers. We spoke on the phone a few months ago. Mrs. Rivers. How did you find me? Helen from Pine Ridge gave me your contact information. I hope you don't mind us showing up like this. Anna looked toward the car where the teenage girl was waiting. Is that Lucy? Amy smiled. Yes, that's my daughter. She's been wanting to meet the woman who helped her father. How is Jake doing? Amy's smile grew wider. He's doing much better than anyone expected. The doctors at the Veterans Center say he's made remarkable progress. He's been in individual therapy, group therapy, and he's learned some techniques to manage his anxiety and flashbacks. Anna felt a warm feeling spread through her chest. That's wonderful news. Dr. Miller, Jake has something he wants to ask you, but he was too nervous to come himself. He's waiting at our hotel. What does he want to ask me? Amy looked a little embarrassed. This might sound strange, but Jake has been very protective of the people who helped him. When he heard that you lost your job because of him, he felt terrible. And lately he's been worried about you working alone with potentially dangerous patients. Anna was confused. I don't understand. Jake knows that your new job involves working with people who have trauma and mental health issues. He's been following the news about attacks on healthcare workers, and he's convinced that you need someone to watch out for your safety. Mrs. Rivers, I appreciate his concern, but please just hear him out. This is part of his recovery process. The doctors say that feeling useful and protective of good people is a sign that he's reconnecting with his core values. Anna agreed to meet Jake at their hotel. As they drove across town, Amy told her more about Jake's progress. The first few weeks at the treatment center were really hard, Amy explained. Jake had to face a lot of painful memories and emotions that he had been pushing down for years. But he worked so hard, Dr. Miller, harder than I've ever seen anyone work. What kind of treatment did he receive? Individual therapy twice a week, group sessions with other veterans, and something called EMDR therapy to help process his traumatic memories. He also learned meditation and breathing techniques to manage his anxiety. Amy parked outside a modest hotel near the mountains. He's been staying here for the past week preparing for this conversation with you. Dr. Miller, I need you to understand something. Jake isn't the same man who disappeared into the mountains 5 years ago. But he's also not exactly the same man he was before the war. He's somewhere in between, and he's learning to accept both parts of himself. They walked to room 237, and Amy knocked softly. Jake? Dr. Miller is here. The door opened and Anna saw Jake Rivers for the first time outside of the institutional setting. He was clean-shaven now with shorter hair, and he was wearing regular clothes instead of hospital scrubs. But what struck Anna most was his eyes. They were still sad, but they weren't empty anymore. There was life in them and hope. Dr. Miller, Jake said quietly. Thank you for coming. It's good to see you, Jake. You look well. Jake gestured for them to come inside. The hotel room was simple but clean, with a small table by the window where Jake had been sitting. I know this is unusual, Jake began, sitting down across from Anna. But I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. In your new job, do you ever work with patients who might be violent? People who could hurt you? Anna thought about some of her current patients. There was David, a veteran who sometimes had angry outbursts. There was Maria, who had been abused and sometimes lashed out when she felt cornered. There was Kevin, a young man with severe PTSD who had difficulty controlling his impulses. Sometimes, yes, it's part of the job when you work with people who have trauma. Jake nodded grimly. I thought so. Dr. Miller, I know this might sound crazy, but I want to help keep you safe. Jake, I appreciate the concern, but I have security protocols at work. I know how to handle difficult situations. I'm sure you do. But protocols don't always work. Sometimes people just need someone nearby who can step in if things get dangerous. Amy spoke up. Jake has been training with security professionals for the past month. He's learned de-escalation techniques and safe restraint methods. The doctors think it's good for his recovery to have a purpose, something that makes him feel useful. Jake leaned forward. Dr. Miller, you saved my life. Not just by being kind to me, but by helping me reconnect with my family. Now I want to use my skills to help protect you while you help other people." Anna was touched by his sincerity, but she was also concerned. "Jake, I don't think my employer would allow an unauthorized person to—" "I've already spoken with your supervisor," Amy interrupted. I called and explained Jake's background. He's a trained military professional with experience in protection and security. Your clinic is considering hiring him as a part-time security consultant? Anna was amazed. "You've thought of everything." Jake's expression grew more serious. "Dr. Miller, I need you to understand why this is so important to me. For 5 years, I lived with the fear that I was dangerous, that I would hurt someone I cared about. Now I know the truth. I'm not dangerous to good people. I'm dangerous to people who want to hurt good people. There's a difference." "The doctors explained it to us," Amy added. Jake's protective instincts were never the problem. The problem was that his trauma made it hard for him to tell the difference between real threats and imagined ones. Now that he's learned to manage those symptoms, his natural protective nature is actually a strength. Jake stood up and walked to the window. "Last week I was at a coffee shop and saw a man harassing the young woman behind the counter. She was clearly scared, but she was trying to stay professional. The old me might have done nothing because I was afraid of making things worse, or I might have overreacted and hurt someone unnecessarily." "What did you do?" Anna asked. "I walked over calmly and asked the man if he needed help finding something. I didn't threaten him or get aggressive. I just made it clear that someone was watching, and that the woman wasn't alone." "The guy backed down immediately." Amy smiled proudly. Jake realized that he could use his size and military bearing to protect people without violence. Just his presence is often enough to make troublemakers think twice. Anna was beginning to understand. "So you want to work at my clinic as a security presence?" "Not just any security guard," Jake said. "Someone who understands trauma and mental illness. Someone who knows that most people who seem dangerous are really just scared and hurting." Anna thought about her current patients and some of the challenging situations she had faced. Last month, David had thrown a chair during a session when he got overwhelmed. The week before, Maria had cornered her in the hallway, yelling and crying about a misunderstanding with her appointment time. In both cases, Anna had handled the situations herself, but it would have been helpful to have backup nearby. "What exactly are you proposing?" Anna asked. Jake sat back down. "I would be at the clinic during your patient hours, mostly staying out of sight. If you ever felt unsafe or needed help with a difficult patient, I would be there, but I wouldn't interfere unless you asked me to, or unless someone was clearly about to hurt you." "And you think this would help with your recovery?" Jake nodded earnestly. "Dr. Miller, for years I believed I was a monster who destroyed everything I touched. Now I'm learning that I can be someone who protects the things that matter. Working with you would help me rebuild my sense of purpose." Anna looked at Amy, who was watching her husband with love and pride. "The doctors think it's a good idea," Amy said. "It gives Jake a chance to practice his new skills in a controlled environment while doing something meaningful." Anna realized that this arrangement could benefit everyone. Jake would have a sense of purpose and a chance to rebuild his confidence. She would have additional security at work, which her supervisor had been talking about implementing anyway. And Jake's unique understanding of trauma could be valuable when working with difficult patients. "Let me talk to my supervisor tomorrow," Anna said finally. "I can't promise anything, but I think there might be a way to make this work." Jake's face lit up with the first genuine smile Anna had ever seen from him. "Thank you, Dr. Miller. You won't regret this." The next day, Anna met with her supervisor, Dr. Patricia Wells, to discuss Jake's proposal. "So this is the patient you told me about?" "The one from Pine Ridge?" "Yes, but Dr. Wells, he's not the same person he was back then. He's been through intensive treatment, and his wife says he's made remarkable." Jake's first day at the community mental health clinic was exactly what Anna had expected. Nerve-wracking for everyone involved. Jake arrived 30 minutes early, wearing a simple button-down shirt and dark pants. He looked professional but approachable, nothing like the wild, frightening man from Pine Ridge. "Good morning, Dr. Miller," Jake said quietly when Anna arrived at her office. "I wanted to get here early to familiarize myself with the layout." Anna could see that Jake was nervous but trying to hide it. His hands were clasped behind his back and he stood very straight like he was back in the military. "How are you feeling about today?" Anna asked. "Honestly? Terrified," Jake admitted. "It's been over 5 years since I had a real job, and I've never worked in mental health before." What if I do something wrong? What if I make someone's condition worse? Anna understood his concerns.
Jake, remember what we talked about yesterday?
You're not here to be a therapist. You're here to provide security and support. Trust your instincts, stay calm. And if you're ever unsure about something, just ask me. Dr. Wells arrived shortly after and showed Jake around the facility. She explained the security protocols, introduced him to the other staff members, and gave him a radio so he could communicate with the front desk. Your main responsibility is to be available if Dr. Miller or any of our other therapists need assistance with a difficult patient, Dr. Wells explained. Most of the time, you'll probably be reading or doing paperwork in the security office. But when we do need you, it's usually urgent. Jake's first real test came that afternoon. Anna was in session with David, the veteran who had previously thrown a chair during therapy. David was having a particularly difficult day, talking about his experiences in Afghanistan and getting more agitated by the minute. The dreams won't stop, David was saying, his voice getting louder. Every night I see my buddies getting blown up and I can't do anything to save them. I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't function. Anna could see that David was approaching a breaking point. His hands were shaking and he kept looking around the room like he expected to be attacked. David, I want you to try the breathing technique we practiced last week, Anna said gently. Breathing techniques don't work, David shouted, standing up abruptly. Nothing works. I'm never going to get better. That's when David picked up his chair and raised it over his head, just like he had done the month before. But this time, instead of throwing it at the wall, he seemed to be considering throwing it at Anna. Anna pressed the button on her desk that would alert security. Within seconds, Jake appeared in the doorway. But instead of charging in like a typical security guard might, Jake moved slowly and kept his voice calm. Hey there, brother, Jake said to David. Looks like you're having a rough day. David turned toward Jake, still holding the chair. Who are you? Name's Jake, I'm a vet too. Did 3 tours in Iraq. Jake took a small step into the room but kept his distance. I know exactly what you're going through with those dreams. Had them myself for years. David lowered the chair slightly. You were over there too? Yeah, man. Lost some good friends. Came home feeling like I was broken beyond repair. Jake's voice was understanding but strong. Spent 5 years thinking I was never going to get better. But you did get better? Jake nodded. It took time and it took help, but yeah. I'm not perfect, but I'm a hell of a lot better than I was. And if I can get better, so can you. David set the chair down and sat back down heavily. Some days I don't think I can keep fighting. I know, Jake said, moving a little closer. But you know what kept me going? The knowledge that my brothers who didn't make it home would want me to keep fighting. They'd want me to get help and live a good life. Anna watched in amazement as David's shoulders relaxed. The anger and desperation in his eyes was being replaced by something that looked like hope. Dr. Miller here is one of the good ones, Jake continued. She helped me when I thought I was beyond help. If you let her, she'll help you too. David looked at Anna with new respect. You helped him? She saved my life, Jake said simply. After David's session ended and he left the building peacefully, Jake found Anna in her office. How did you know exactly what to say to him? Anna asked. Jake shrugged. I recognized the look in his eyes. It's the same look I had for years. The look of someone who's lost hope and is ready to give up. Sometimes all a person needs is to hear from someone else who's been in that dark place and made it out. Over the next few weeks, Jake proved invaluable at the clinic. He had a natural ability to connect with patients who were struggling with trauma and mental health issues. His presence alone seemed to calm many people, and his understanding of their experiences helped him de-escalate situations that might have become violent. But Jake's most important moment came 3 weeks into his trial period, when Anna faced a real threat. Anna was working late one evening, finishing up paperwork from the day's sessions. Most of the staff had gone home and the building was quiet. Jake was in the security office monitoring the cameras and doing his own paperwork. That's when Thomas Mitchell showed up. Thomas had been Anna's patient 6 months earlier. He had been struggling with paranoid delusions and had become convinced that Anna was secretly working for the government to spy on him. Despite Anna's patient efforts to help him understand reality, Thomas had become increasingly hostile and had eventually stopped coming to sessions. Now he was back, and he had somehow gotten into the building after hours. Anna looked up from her desk to see Thomas standing in her doorway. His appearance was disheveled, and his eyes had the wild look of someone who was completely out of touch with reality. "I knew you'd be here," Thomas said, stepping into her office. "Working late, writing reports about me to send to your government handlers." Anna's heart started racing, but she kept her voice calm. "Thomas, I'm just finishing up some routine paperwork. There's nothing about you in these files. Don't lie to me," Thomas shouted, moving closer to her desk. "I know what you've been doing. I know you've been tracking me, watching me, reporting on everything I do." Anna slowly reached for the panic button under her desk, but Thomas saw the movement. "Don't you dare call for backup," he said, lunging toward her desk. That's when Jake appeared in the doorway. Thomas spun around, and Anna could see that he was holding something in his hand. It looked like a knife. "Easy there, friend," Jake said, his voice steady and calm. "Let's just take a step back and talk about this." "Another government spy," Thomas said, waving the knife in Jake's direction. "I should have known they'd have backup waiting." Jake raised his hands to show he wasn't armed. "Thomas, right? I'm not with the government, man. I'm just a guy who works here part-time. Used to have problems with paranoia myself." "You're lying." "No, I'm telling the truth. A few years ago, I was convinced that everyone was out to get me too. Thought my own family was plotting against me. Lived alone in the mountains because I was sure that anyone who tried to help me had secret motives." Thomas looked confused. You felt like that too?" Jake nodded. "It's a terrible feeling, isn't it? Being convinced that everyone you should be able to trust is actually your enemy." "Yes," Thomas said, his voice breaking. "I can't trust anyone. They're all watching me, following me." "I know it feels that way," Jake said gently. "But Thomas, look around this room. Do you see any cameras? Any recording equipment? Any evidence that Dr. Miller is actually spying on you?" Thomas looked around the room uncertainly. They could be hidden. They could be, but are they really? Or is it possible that your mind is playing tricks on you, making you see threats that aren't actually there?" Anna watched as Jake slowly moved closer to Thomas, not in a threatening way, but in a way that showed he wasn't afraid. "Thomas, I need you to do something for me," Jake said. "I need you to look at Dr. Miller, really look at her. Does she look like a government spy to you? Or does she look like a woman who spends her days trying to help people who are hurting?" Thomas looked at Anna, and for the first time she saw some clarity return to his eyes. She always listened to me," Thomas said quietly. "Even when I said things that didn't make sense." "Exactly. That's what good people do. They listen, they try to understand, they don't judge." Jake was close enough now to reach out and touch the knife if he needed to. "Thomas, I'm going to ask you to give me that knife. Not because I want to hurt you, but because I want to make sure nobody gets hurt accidentally." Thomas looked down at the knife in his hand like he was surprised to see it there. I didn't mean to scare anyone. I just wanted to know why she was writing about me." "I know, man. Sometimes when our minds are playing tricks on us, we do things that don't make sense later." Jake held out his hand. "How about you give me the knife and then we can sit down and talk about what's really bothering you?" To Anna's amazement, Thomas handed over the knife without resistance. As soon as he did, he seemed to deflate, like all the fight had gone out of him. "I'm so tired," Thomas said, sinking into a chair. "I'm tired of being scared all the time. I'm tired of not trusting anyone." Jake sat down across from him. "I know exactly what you mean. But Thomas, the good news is that you don't have to stay that way. There are medications that can help with the paranoia, and there are people like Dr.